Hello, hello, and welcome to another episode of the Webinar Talk Show. My name is Tom Singer.
And I'm Liz Green, and our second season is really rocking and rolling. It's a pleasure to get all of these amazing people to come and share with us about the theme, Don't Cancel Your Event. And Tom, I think one of the reasons that our meeting industry and HR colleagues are a little bit fearful about taking their in-person event into the virtual world is that there's this belief that a virtual experience is going to be less than. It is not going to be as engaging or as good at delivering content as that in-person event will be. But our guest today.
Yeah, our guest today is going to show us that it can be engaging and you can have great content with really high levels of entertainment and ways to grab your audience. And here's one of the things. We all know that over the last now 7 months, most people we know have Zoom fatigue. Don't you agree?
Yes, staring into the blank screen, maybe listening to voice over PowerPoint for yet another hour. Not exactly an entertaining way to spend your time.
No. And there are a lot of ways that you can engage an audience, but I think one of the people who does it the best is our guest today. So Dan Thurmon, he is a really innovative and powerful speaker. But as I said, he takes real actionable content that you can use in your business, but he also, because he's an entertainer and has a background starting as a young kid doing entertainment, he knows how to really grasp people. So that's why we invited him to be here today. And we're going to talk about sort of all the different things you can do on lots of levels to make your meetings better. So Dan Thurmon, welcome to the Webinar Talk Show.
Thank you, Tom. Hello, Eliz. So great to be with you. Congratulations on your second season.
Thank you. We interviewed Dan as part of the NSA Influence 2020 sessions that Tom and I co-hosted. It was, so we don't like to play favorites here.
Yeah, we do.
It was pretty mind-blowing. And it was a bar setter for us in terms of what is possible in the virtual environment. So I know that you are a spectacular speaker on the stage in person. When everything happened in March and April, you very quickly pivoted. Tell us about what you did to continue to just deliver what your audiences have expected from you.
Thank you so much. Well, it really became apparent to me right away that this was the new normal. I hate that term. So many terms have been overused, but at least for the foreseeable future, this is how we are going to engage with audiences. And I love your theme of don't cancel your meeting. It's the last thing you want to do because right now people need more than ever hope. They need tools, they need learning, they need connection in different ways. When you think about supply and demand, the demand for what we deliver as speakers right now is higher than it's ever been because people are hurting and we're helping. And if we can't find that bridge to help people, then we can't really do our job and we can't be of service to them and to the world. And so what I decided early on with my team, this is definitely a team effort. We have a couple of people here with us right now, in fact, who are helping us run this meeting, who are amazing and wonderful. But we decided we have to deliver at that expectation of my brand, which is it's an elevated experience. It engages people in a different way. It communicates with not only your mind, but body and spirit all at once. I'm a very physical performer and entertainer and speaker. And I've found that the congruence between communicating with my words and my actions is the defining factor of my brand. And so when it's not possible to be with an audience, how do you do that? Well, we found that answer by creating a space which accommodates a mind, body, and spiritual connection with our audience that we've found is very, very fun and rewarding in a different way.
So Dan, let's go into the Wayback Machine, because when I introduced you, I said that you started off as an entertainer. So young Dan started entertaining in what ways?
Learning to juggle at 11 years old. I was a very hyperactive kid and also an acrobat, gymnast. And so physicalizing those lessons and really using them as an instrument to elevate my life and success because of discipline and practice and focus and execution were really important. I became a performer about the age of 12 or 13. I had my own show. I paid my way, built a business in high school, paid my way through business school in college, grew a business. And so all along the while, I was looking at how excellence with some things, in my case, performing and physical skills, really translated to as a teaching tool to excellence with everything. Excellence as a leader, as a business operator, as a salesperson, excellence in any profession or venue of life. Because, you know, when you come down to it, human beings are all the same, and that we all deal with our own internal world and have to find the courage and the ability to learn, to perform, and to rise to whatever moments are in front of us and deliver. And that's performance. And so learning to be a performer at a very early age is the most transferable and useful skill to teach people how to command excellence in their own life.
Well, I think you are the master, I have to say. And I've seen you both on stage and in the virtual environment of using all of those entertainment skills to deliver like seriously aha information where you sit back and go, oh.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Because, you know, that was a rule I made from the beginning is I don't ever want my entertainment value to upstage my message. And a lot of entertainers who enter the communication educational world find it difficult because they're, in one sense, your glitziness or showbiz or impact in that arena can upstage what you're trying to teach and also create a disconnect. Because while I'm showing you amazing things that I can do, the challenge or the tendency for some is to say, well, that's just, I could never do that. Right. I could never be like Dan. But that's not the point. You don't have to be like Dan. You don't have to create a virtual studio. You don't have to do the types of skills that I do. But what you can do is pursue excellence using these concepts in your own way. And so it's a long learning journey to find that line in terms of how do you present the wow factor without the ta-da moment, it's all about me. No, it's the wow factor with the connection to this is all about you. Mm-hmm. And that's been the challenge and the fun.
So Dan, one of the things that you did early on when COVID hit and the quarantine happened and live meetings and training stopped, one of the things you did is you took an area in your home, sort of an unfinished sort of area, and turned it in to a studio that is where you're sitting right now. But there's a lot more to it that makes it both entertainment and education and sort of this personal relating space. Could you show us around your studio?
Well, sure. And I will just a moment. It's actually an exterior finished space. So we took a garage, and this was 2 years ago. We did a project where we converted a 2-car garage into a video studio. So we had the space already. We used it for recording pre-program of videos for product, for various things like that. So we had some of the equipment, but not the right equipment. We had a space though that was very conducive and well insulated. So we had that going for us. And so, yeah, so this became our broadcast facility. Let me show you around. So in this room is where I can get physical. This is the body part of mind, body, and spirit, where I can use my full form, where we can explain certain concepts in different ways. For example, I wrote this book called Off Balance on Purpose, and that really is to liberate you from the expectation of ever achieving balance, because balance is not what you get, balance is what you do. And we're balancing constantly. This year alone, all of our challenges and foundations have been proven to be precarious and ever shifting in every moment. I mean, when you think back, talking about the Wayback Machine, it was almost like every day or every week, certainly, there was a different version of reality. And so when everything about our life, how we work, how we parent, how we learn, how we shop, how we entertain ourselves is constantly in flux, the question is, how do you position yourself on top of it? And you can see I'm not balanced, I'm balancing. I'm making constant corrections and adjustments. And after all that work and all that effort, I'm still right here, just a lot more exhausted for that effort, right?
So
But the reality is we have all become exhausted in different ways, and we've had to find how we can renew ourselves. But the big takeaway there for you is balance is not what you get. Balance is what you do. So the challenge for us is to become better balancers, to become better at making adjustments.
I love your example while you were doing a handstand on your lectern there. I liked your example of the fact that I'm not balanced, I'm balancing. And I think that message in these crazy times, especially for people who have to plan some sort of a meeting, whether it's a big conference or a training for a team, that's a really important message is you're going to be off balance the whole time. Just do it anyway, right?
Yes, 100%. And all of that practice that we've had this year, whether you know it or not, has made you so much better. And we've been on this trajectory and learning new things more quickly. You know, I use juggling as a metaphor, of course, because that was my early foundation. Juggling for me was the skill where all this hyperactive energy that was getting me in trouble became a tool that I could use to elevate my presence and platform and become different and special in my life. So it was a really important skill. But for me, just to cut over here, Tom, I never got the hang of juggling 3 balls until I tried 4, or 4 until I tried 5. It's about taking on that next level challenge that always stretches your skill. And so the things about juggling are really, where are you looking? Because it's not about making everything at once, all the throws at the same time. It's not about being overwhelmed. It's about doing one thing at a time with excellence. Mm-hmm. And so managing your focus, looking up at the targets, and then executing toward those targets consistently, and realizing you can only make one throw at a time, just the next throw. And that's what enables you to be in the moment and find the spaces between the throws and catches. So again, I don't want to go into keynote mode, or I just want to show you how we use this space to teach certain concepts. And this is the physical space. And there's one more, actually, right over here. This is what we call the classroom. And this is where we go to work with your mind, to really get into what you're thinking and understand how to break down different concepts into very actionable ideas. We've been teaching a lot about uncertainty and really this spectrum of certainty. How do you use some certainty, which is all you ever get, in order to really manage your presence and your contributions and bring all of you to what you do and your uniqueness. And so we teach these strategies about how to claim certainties and embrace what's unknown and create more certainty by prescribing for yourself a path of learning and a path of growth. That's been a biggie. Obviously, resilience, resourcefulness, and renewal have been huge ideas where people really need these tools and understand that they're all different. Resilience, bouncing back, finding resources around you that you can use, and understanding everything counts and serves you, even in those moments of lack or frustration. You can find abundance. And renewal, how do we renew our spirit instead of feeling like we're constantly just pushing and pushing and pushing, because that wears you out, wears you down, breaks down quickly.
I think that's where a lot of our meeting professionals are right now, needing that renewal piece, because all of this has been so uncertain. I love how you address that.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and just real quick, a couple other things. We talk about what we can control in the midst of what we can't control. Teaching that to people really gives them a sense of where I can start, where I can go, something I could sink my teeth into, because so much of what we're doing right now feels unfamiliar, and we have to own the familiarity, connect it to our past, and say, wait a second, we're not starting over. We all have rich histories and foundations and relationships and skills, and we can build on those and go forward with a lot of confidence. And your virtual conference is the same way. Your skills that you've built all along the years serve you in this moment extraordinarily well. And I loved your opening, because the truth is virtual meetings can be much more in certain ways. That was the big takeaway for me years and years ago. For many years, I've been thinking, I don't want to do webinars. I don't want to do virtual because I'm a live performance guy. That's who I am. But I had to flip that script. when this was now the new reality and say, what if virtual meetings can be more? And they can. They can be much more personal, much more efficient, and much more effective. I've found that we can use time more effectively. We can be very efficient in terms of who gets which conversation, and we can reach audiences all over the world, right? So we can efficiently and effectively reach audiences across the planet, effectively expanding the range of your impact and message and your conference and personal, because regardless of how many people are on the other end of this thing, we're looking in a lens and we're talking to a person one-on-one, and it feels that way if you're good at using this medium. And by the way, this is not just a challenge that you face, this is a challenge everybody faces. So what I'm saying is it's still a level playing field, it's just a different game. And that means if you master this world and if you master this game, right now you have an opportunity to differentiate from your competition and to stand out by far and to create an experience at a moment when people so desperately need it. And I just gave you a couple more quick skills because I think this can help you. So the whole key to this ball game is on-camera excellence. We're all broadcasters now. We are all in this realm where we're connecting with people through a camera lens, and we need to know how to do that. We need to be able to look into that lens itself, because we want people to be able to see into our eyes. And it's very counterintuitive to do this. We want to look at screens and monitor pictures and look at people, and you've been told that's how you get feedback and body language from people that really informs what you're doing and how your message is being received. Yes, and you've also been told, don't trust someone who doesn't look at you in the eyes when they're talking to you, right? And so it's not about you looking into their eyes. It's about giving them the opportunity to look into your eyes and to see what's in your heart, to see your intention. Cameras pick up intentions, they just do. So this is why it's so important to be on purpose and in that mode of service. Because if you're thinking, oh, I hope I get through this and I don't really know what I'm doing and I hope I can just fool everybody, then that's going to come across as a very flat presentation. But if I'm thinking, I really need to help these people, it's important to me, it's imperative that they get what I'm trying to teach, then that sincerity comes across as well. So we need to do that. You need to presume, hey, everything's working. It's positive. My message is being received. People are understanding. My jokes are landing perfectly, because you don't get that feedback otherwise. So we have to understand, when we create that reality in our minds, then that's conveyed through the lens. And it's highly likely that becomes the reality of our external world. And I would say use slides sparingly, or not necessarily sparingly, but with purpose, with precision. In other words, you definitely want that to be, you want to advocate in preference of the impersonal connection for those who understand it. Don't waste people's time, and really everything counts. Everything you've learned by watching screens, by being at your TV, watching broadcasters, talk shows. Man, I'm even thinking back to my early childhood upbringing with Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood and Bozo's Circus and all these experiences I viewed through a screen that created an imprint on my life and on my heart. I thought, well, how can I use this incredible opportunity to create a similar imprint for my audiences in my own unique way? And so that's what we've done. And this space here, which we call the library, is where we really get into the heart of the matter, where we convey deep personal stories and do Q&A with the audience, and I can create that personal connection. So mind, body, and spirit, all in one space, very intentional, right? And very practical.
So Dan, I mean, your studio is amazing, but we're kind of in the same boat, because one of the reasons Eliz and I created the webinar talk show is we wanted to prove to people that webinars and speeches didn't have to be these boring talking heads over PowerPoint. And so there's a lot of ways to do it. And you've demonstrated just a spectacular way with your, 3 different areas of how you're able to put it together. What are some of the things that you have seen other people do that have been unique and really good, that grabs people? And then maybe a couple of things you've seen people do where you're like, oh no.
Well, first of all, I would like to say what you and Eliz are doing is incredible. What you've done is taken a very personal, respectful, professional friendship. I mean, you care about each other's lives and you respect each other's work. And by combining talents with one another and your personalities, you've created an offering that not only served our internal organization, the National Speakers Association, and really carried us through an amazing period of time, but you're conveying this and creating this opportunity to serve organizations at a whole different level. And the layer of bringing you in on top of what they're doing really creates that personal connection. So that's an amazing example of how responding in a way that's very personal and connected to an internal truth can serve others in a meaningful way. I've noticed other performers who, like me, have taken the bigger approach, Vin Jiang, Mike Rayburn, Clint Pulver, who have multi-camera setups. Most people don't need that because really, truthfully, to have multiple cameras is superfluous unless they're intentional.
Right.
If you're just cutting to a different camera to look at a different camera, it's really sort of like pacing the stage randomly without any reason why you went from here to there, right? But if the cameras are intentional and there's a reason why I would do an aside to a different camera for a specific reason, then that would make sense. It really is about going deep in terms of relevant content. So the speakers that I've noticed who've done extremely well have been the ones who say, what does my message and content and body of work mean right now to these people? It's not about your story any longer. If it ever was, I think it's always really been about the connection of how your story and your life journey and your lens and perspective intersects with your audience in a way to solve the problem. The difference is right now, the problems are magnified, amplified. The reality is really important. And for a lot of people, it's the difference between whether we're going to survive this or whether we're going to not survive it and have to emerge in some different form on the other side. Everything is changing. So when we can speak to how change is happening and how to make that work, like Eliz in your work, where you talk about managing that internal environment to get stress out of your way, to get anxiety in check so that you can be resourceful. Those are the skills that are most beneficial and people need them, but they don't necessarily know that they need them. We have to remind them and we have to be there to show them.
That's very true. So much like speakers don't need necessarily the 3-camera studio in their home, meeting professionals, HR people who are planning meetings, some of them are going to need the big production company and the vendor hall that's gamified and all of that. And some of them are going to need just a little help figuring out how to do this over Zoom and how to make the flow work. What have you seen in terms of working with your meeting professional colleagues? What are they needing? What is making that shift into the virtual world successful?
Yeah, it's a great question because the reality is just being able to do a virtual conference is the barrier to entry to do it on your own is not really all that high. You have to understand a lot about platforms. It's a tremendous amount of work. So I don't want to minimize that. But in terms of investment, you can get there on your own. The production companies that come in and bring on the in-depth conference experience, I think that's becoming more important because it's a distinguishing factor, but it's really not necessary in most circumstances for most companies. Now, it depends on your brand, right? When I started off talking about my brand and what my audience expects from me, what you have to say is, in order for this to be a successful conference, what is it we must deliver? And what will people be, how will they be measuring the impact on their own lives and on their own businesses in ROI terms, in terms of the investment of their time and their money to attend? And so if that is content, if that's information, sincere, speakers and who are bringing that word, at least initially, the first part of this pandemic, March, April, May, June, July, even now, the bar is still pretty low where people don't expect a lot in terms of production value, but they want it to work, and they understand when it's not working perfectly. There's a accommodation for learning that's happening even now. I think as time goes on into 2021, people are going to really have a higher degree of expectation in terms of what they're going to get out of it. And so it's important to factor all of that in. But I think the priority in terms of budgets is not on the dazzling meeting room. It's really about finding the people who can connect with your audience and bring them what they need. And in order to do that, we don't need a lot of glitz.
But they could indeed need a little juggling in handstanding.
well, they need experts, right? And they need people who can engage their audience, because you've got to think of your conference. Again, remember what I said, everything counts. So you would plan on an event. You have your opening speaker, you have your experience, you have this dynamic flow of energy from how it starts, how we set the expectation of what they're going to go through in this journey and this time together, what they're going to get out of it, how we want them to engage with that. We need to teach them how we want them to participate. We need to elevate their own thinking and celebrate their success, but also challenge them that this is going to be work. This is going to be an opportunity for them to learn and grow. So, right, so we've got that, and then we've got all the learning and growing that happens, and then we have the call to action where we really remind them what they've learned. And so I've always been hired in the past as the opening keynote speaker to either set the expectations and to provide that experience, the experience that conveys to the audience, wait, this isn't what you expected. This is going to be powerful. This is going to be different. You know, set aside what you thought we were going to do, because this is going to really be meaningful. Or I've been the closing call to action guy at the end that really shows people how to take everything that they've learned and to go do something better, go do something different, to challenge themselves, to incorporate it into their own pattern going forward. And so I think those are still like the right places to bring me in, although we're doing quite a lot of other things as well.
So Dan, it is interesting because you talk about that idea of creating that arc, that flow of the experience for a conference in a virtual environment. And before we recorded this, I was watching, a conference that was just like talking head number 1, followed by talking head number 2, followed by talking head number 3. And I realized that they hadn't thought about that whole idea of that experience and that call to action, bookending some of that, information that they wanted to share. So we really need to look at these virtual events the same and yet different than live events, as in-person events. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. Beginning, middle, and an end. Any good story has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And any good experience has an opening, a middle, and a closing. And it doesn't matter if it's a short conversation or a short story or a 3-day or 5-day conference. You have to storyboard it. You have to think about your audience's experience. And if you were going through this as them, what would you want in terms of time and investment? And yes, Zoom fatigue is real, right? And so when we think about what are they getting out of the investment of that time, and how are we going to help them through what for them we know is going to be challenging in some ways, and that they're starting with a bit of a bias against the experience. When you think about how we used to plan events, we used to manage everything for absolute attention. We're going to fly to a different city. We're going to go into a ballroom with people next to us, so we're being observed by our peers, colleagues, and leaders. And then we're going to focus all of our attention on the stage, and the room goes dark, and there's screens that magnify what's happening. And so we're maximizing attention. And now we're creating events on a platform and on a device that maximizes distraction. Because we have messages coming in, we have emails, we have programs, we have the internet, we have all of this, and we have a sense of I'm alone and no one's really watching me, right? And so that's okay. In fact, maybe it's better in some ways. And that's the question. How is that better? And how do we help people through that and recognize that, we no longer have that leverage of saying, lights are out, watch the screen, let's go.
It's so true. So if somebody is out there thinking, ooh, I really should talk to Dan Thurmon, how would they get a hold of you?
DanThurmon.com is my website. Thurmon. So it's Thurmon with an O. DanThurmon.com. By all means, please reach out. I'd love to talk to you, even if it's not a fit for me to help you personally. I'd love to help you rethink some of your meeting objectives and just kind of see where it goes from there.
Well, Dan, thank you so much for joining us today here on the Webinar Talk Show. And Elias, I think this is a perfect example of what we've always said about why interviews are so engaging. He gave us real content.
Right.
And he was able to do a handstand and juggle, all weaved in to sort of this talk show format. So I think, Dan, thanks for being a perfect example of how you can do things differently and make them awesome.
Thank you for inviting me. Thank you for your friendship, and God bless you guys. Good luck, everyone.
Thank you. You can find us on webinartalkshow.com, and we'd love it if you would like us on Facebook at Webinar Talk Show. We will be back on Wednesday. We're going to be talking to Patty Henry about how you go into this virtual world in a different way, working with a speaker in a different way. So we'll look forward to seeing you on Wednesday. Until then, have a great day.
Thanks, y'all.